Welcome aboard the Dan Sileo Show / the National Football Show. However you want to put it, National Football Show with Dan Sileo. All I know is football. Hope all are having a fantastic day. You know, Thursday, what's great about this week, you know, it's a short work week like it was last week. It's just fantastic, right? Summertime's right around the corner. We're getting ready for training camp in July. Just a fantastic time of the year right now. So many things going on in football, so many storylines. You know, I've said this before to you. The National Football League has done such a great job at the water cooler talk. You know, I mean, let's face it. The National Football League, they play games on Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night, right? Okay, but during that other time, do they not control the narrative when it comes to the sports medium? I mean, there's storylines every single day that you can really look at, you can analyze, and get this. Some of it is very, even in the offseason, it's exceptionally polarizing. Look, the Tebow story, Aaron Rodgers, what Russell Wilson was doing by kicking tires in Seattle, college football. I mean, there are so many great lanes to go in when we're talking football. Football is a 24/7 operation now, 12 months of the year you're talking. I mean, we just had more news about a new league starting up. Look, The Rock is starting the XFL. How about Fox getting behind the old USFL? They have not been in operation since 1985. I'll tell you something. That league was one of the best non-NFL leagues that we had ever seen in this country. And I'll even compare it to the old AFL. The AFL was arguably the best because the NFL absorbed it, right? But that USFL, man, they had so many stars, and I'll show you later on in the program how great that league was. And, I mean, all the Pro Bowlers that came off that league and all the Hall of Famers that played in that. Reggie White was in that league. You know, I was a supplemental guy. So was Reggie White. So was Steve Young. There were so many players that played, you know, in the USFL. We're going to talk about it, and it's crazy that they're going to start that league back up. I love it. I am a giant fan of spring football. I played in the spring with the old World Football League, and I had a great time. We traveled all over the world. I played in Frankfurt. I played in London. I played everywhere around the world. And the NFL owned this league at one time. It was absolutely fantastic. So I'm a big proponent of spring football. All right, let's dive into our sandbox known as football here. You know, I briefly mentioned this yesterday. One of my great honors that I get every year as a College Football Hall of Fame voter by the National Football Foundation is that I do get a vote. I take that very seriously. I really do. I look at the content of the player. Look, he's going to be great if he's one of the final 22 guys that are going to be considered for a Hall of Fame. Now, my 22 not necessarily are going to be the guys that will be picked in the very end who end up making it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. However, I want to go over why I picked these guys. Do you know that the modern day media today, we're all about clicks, right? We really don't cover great stories any longer. You know why? Covering a good story, it's not really polarizing. That's why we cover guys like AB, Aaron Hernandez, you know, the guys who create the news, Odell Beckham Jr., the divas of the league. You know, that's what's making Tom Brady so cool. Cool Tom Brady, I mean, right? So I'm loving this new Tom Brady. I want to hit on that a little bit later as well. But I want to go over my list of the people that I selected to make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. By the way, I've tweeted this out at Dan Sileo Show. These are the guys that I picked. And what I want to do is I want to tell you why I picked these guys. It's such an honor. Go over there at Dan Sileo Show, the National Football Foundation, College Football Hall of Fame ballot. I've been voting for the last 10 years. And it's such an honor. And I want to tell you why. It's funny, I was just talking to Callie, he's a Penn State guy. And I'm going to start there with Penn State. With LeVar Arrington, I gave him my vote. The reason I voted for LeVar Arrington, he's truly the last superstar Joe Paterno coached. And why do you think I voted for him? I don't want LeVar Arrington to get caught up in all that controversy on how Joe ended his career. Why should that affect LeVar's status on being selected to the College Football Hall of Fame? He thanked me also, by the way, on my Twitter page. And he knows, and hey, don't think that that doesn't play a factor. You know how writers are. You know how media members are. They will hold anything against the player as much as they possibly can. LeVar was just an absolutely sensational football player at Penn State. And I'm not going to allow Joe Paterno's ending in Penn State to ruin what could be a great moment for LeVar. That university has produced some of the greatest linebackers in college football history, going all the way back to Jack Ham. I mean, sensational football players. You know, I always say this to you about Joe Paterno. Is Joe Paterno responsible for the actions of Jerry Sandusky? Absolutely not. Is he accountable? Yes, he is. It's his football program, just like any other coach. If anything happens at that program, it's your accountability. It's your name on the marquee. That's why it's important to always know, do I look at Joe as a complex career in all the great things that he did by building the libraries and the science department at Penn State, all the things that he helped. That stadium that they play football in, when he took over the program, it had 33,000 fans in it. Now it's over 100,000. The Penn State faithful are some of the greatest fans of college football, and they love that program. And now you're not even allowed to mention the word Joe Paterno. Hey, look, Paterno's legacy will always be debated, but his impact at Penn State will never be debated because he made that he is Penn State. I'm one of the very few guys. If you look at any of the broadcasts over the last couple of years, they never bring up Paterno's name on ESPN or any other network because they're afraid. Oh, you're giving them kudos? Well, you can define people in different ways. O.J. Simpson was the greatest running back in USC history. But that doesn't mean anything what his life was after football. That's a whole different chapter in his book, right? So I gave LeVar my first vote. I have 12 of them, by the way. Guess who I voted for second? Reggie Bush. I know he had the Heisman taken away. He was kicked off the campus for a decade because he took $300,000 and he got a house for his mom and dad. Think about what I just said. $300,000 for his family and a house for his mom and dad. Boy, he's a horrible guy. Wow. And he took his Heisman away, which I think should be returned to him. Reggie Bush was one of the most electric players in the history of the game. One of the most controversial men in college football history because of all the things that happened with the money, with the house, with the illegal agent. Now we're talking about paying student athletes. Now we're talking about giving them stipends for being able to play in front of 100,000, which should have been done years ago. Do you know, and get this, please forgive me when I say this to you. You know, the University of Miami, they still use my name and my jersey to sell jerseys in the student union. You know, when I signed a scholarship to play at the University of Miami, I signed a 4-year scholarship, 1-year renewables. I didn't sign a lifetime contract for people to use my name and my image whenever they felt it suited them to have to use it to go out and sell tickets. I didn't give you that right. Now, I love my school. My school has done so much for me, and it's cool. But I know some kids who aren't cool with it. Shouldn't I be getting a percentage of that jersey that's being sold in the student union with number 93 on it and my name on the back of the jersey? No? Wow. So now we're talking Reggie Bush today. Now he's on Fox. I'm so happy for him that Fox Sports has given him that vehicle to be able to do the college football pregame show. And Reggie Bush gets my vote. You know, the writers can say whatever they want, but Reggie belongs in the College Football Hall of Fame. This next man that I gave my vote to, Sylvester Croom, you probably never heard of him. Probably don't have any idea who he is. He was an assistant coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when I was in Tampa. Sylvester Croom was one of the very first African-American players that played for Coach Bear Bryant. Was an All-American center before Dwight Stevenson showed up. And it was so important for Sylvester Croom and Bear Bryant to get together because you know what he created? They created a pipeline where players that were born in the South didn't have to go to the Midwest or didn't have to go out west to go to college because the Southeastern Conference wasn't integrated yet. Sylvester Croom was one of the very first guys to be responsible for the integration of the SEC. He became the very first African-American head football coach at Mississippi State. Should have got the Alabama job, but maybe that was a little too rich for that conference at the time. His importance is essential in SEC history. Just a name you probably never heard of, but his journey was so important because the SEC now has some of the greatest players in the history of college football out of it. Take a look at the draft. 65 players were drafted out of the SEC, majority of them African-American. Well, Sylvester Croom's shoulders are who those players stand on today. It was because of him. That's why that man gets my vote. And you talk about a quality human being, insanity, and what a great man he is. I voted for my friend Brad Culpepper. You probably have no idea who he is either. Brad won the Campbell Award. You know what that is? It's the smartest All-American football player in the country. Played at Florida. Played over 10 years in the NFL. Played next to Warren Sapp in that Buccaneer defense. You know what he is today? He's a practicing trial attorney. Brad was a 4.0 student at Florida. And the reason I voted for Brad, he's a dear friend. That played into it. Won't lie. But Brad shows you that football didn't define him. That football is a part of him. And football should always be just a part of you and never define you. Your kids define you. Your family defines you. Your passions may define you. But Brad's a lawyer now, and a very successful one in Tampa. So I gave him my vote. How many people know who Warrick Dunn is? Have any idea who Warrick Dunn is? Warrick Dunn is a man who played a lot of years in the NFL, played for the Buccaneers and Falcons. One of the absolute greatest human beings I have ever had the privilege of bumping into. Do you know what he does each and every single year? God, I don't even know how many homes it's up to now. He started a foundation because his mother, who was a police officer in Louisiana, was shot and murdered. He gives a home every year to a single mom who's raising their kid. Throws them the keys. Don't really hear that story, though, do you? It's not really, the clickbait kind of story. But that's an inspirational story. All these men that I'm naming you here have inspirational journeys. I look into it, knee deep into who these men are. Look, you're on a ballot for any kind of consideration for Hall of Fame. Of course you're good. Of course you're in a position where you have to always understand, okay? It's like thanking me for not robbing a bank. But there's Warrick Dunn. Pretty remarkable. Then you have James Larinitis. You know who James Larinitis is? He is the son of Road Warrior Animal. Yes, the Road Warriors. Raised in a wrestling family. Traveled around all the time. Watched his father perform with Road Warrior Hawk. An Animal just died a couple months ago. He followed me on Twitter. We're just dear friends, and I love the family. And he also thanked me, by the way, on my Twitter page. And his journey led him to Ohio State, where he was a consensus All-American. And now he works in the front office of the Rams, striving to become a general manager. Had a good career in the NFL. Wouldn't say sensational, but then again, it's hard to say, hey, a good career versus a gold jacket type career. I never want to dismiss anybody who played and had such a great, opportunity to put their footprints in the sand. And James Larinitis did. He was really a fine ball player. I voted for Ken Dorsey. You know who he is? He's a quarterback on the greatest college football team of all time, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. Over 7 guys were drafted in the first round. Ken was drafted in the 12th. Andre Johnson's on that team. Reggie Wayne's on that team. Portis. James. Edgerrin is going to the Hall of Fame. Bryant McKinney. I mean, all of the guys are, you know what he is now? He's quarterback coach in Buffalo. He coaches Josh Allen. Josh Allen said, having Ken Dorsey around me has helped my career so much because Ken, like Frank Reich, when Frank was working with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia, he understands success, but more importantly, he understands the failures at the position. He crafts game plans to the personality. Ken was up for the offensive coordinating job in Miami to try to help Tua, but he wanted to stay and help Josh Allen become a superstar player, which he is. I think it's pretty remarkable that these men here, and I was proud to give my vote. You can go again over to @Dan Show, and you could see who I voted for. I voted for Eric Redd. I did vote for Bryant McKinney. I think there's so many quality guys that were up for the consideration for Hall of Fame, and I'm just so thankful that I get that vote each and every single day. And like I said, I look at the journey also, not just the great talent. I'm doing something today that most people don't do. You know what I want? I want people to inspire me. I don't want to hear about racist cops. I don't want to hear about racist politicians. This guy hates this guy. That doesn't inspire Americans. That doesn't inspire anybody. You know what would be great for once? If I tuned on an NBA show and someone was showing me the journey that LeBron James went through, where they had to move 9 times with his single mom, and how he got to be worth $900 million. Isn't that inspirational? Instead of somebody calling someone a racist? Try to inspire people, man. Make me want to be you. Whatever happened to that? I don't want, when I grew up, my hero was my grandfather. He was a fireman for 29 years and a fisherman his entire life. Hardworking guy. Spoke Italian. When he didn't want me to know anything, what was going on. Him and my grandmother, 50% of the time in my home, they spoke Italian. It was a phenomenal place to grow. My grandpa had limited education. I don't think he got through high school, but he had 3 jobs. Worked for Telesco Cement, drove a cement truck. My grandfather was a cop or was a fireman for 29 years. Was a fisherman too. I went out with him all the time. That guy breaking his back, man, that inspired me. My pop inspired me. Raised all his kids and his grandkids. Just a phenomenal place to live. I didn't have a mother and father. Not crying because I had the greatest life on the planet. I had a phenomenal aunt. I do have a phenomenal aunt. And my grandma and grandpa. But these people were hardworking. They are inspirational people. That's the stories I want to hear. Those are the people that I put into the Hall of Fame. Because they're not just Hall of Fame players. They're Hall of Fame people. It's about time we looked at Hall of Fame people. We're always looking for the negative in someone instead of not just reaching out for the positive in people. Warrick Dunn is one of the absolute greatest men I have ever been around. How many stories are done on him? With all the sadness in the world, homeless people, he's giving homes away to single moms. The impact of his mother being shot and murdered inspired him throughout his entire NFL career. Warrick Dunn's not defined by being an NFL running back, which he was one of the best, and an All-American at Florida State. He's defined by the man he is. Look, I'm not preaching to anybody, and I'm not trying to. I'm so inspired by that list of men, and I look at their journeys, and I'm like, man, they make me want to be a better man. I tell you, I told people this before. I wasn't a Kobe Bryant fan. But watching Kobe Bryant, the father, and how he dealt with Gigi and how he was constantly around her and how he was always going to girls' basketball camps, always showing up at UConn basketball, a great dad. Hey, we all have trip-ups in our life. Not everybody's perfect. There's only one guy that's perfect. I think he lives upstairs, Okay, we all have faults, man. We're not perfect. And that's cool. I accept that. But watching Kobe, man, and I remember Jordan sitting there at the memorial, and Jordan was in tears, and he goes, hey, man, I'm a girl dad now. So am I. I'm a girl dad too, by the way. Kobe Bryant made me a better dad. Before I went on the air, I kissed my daughter, and I do that every day because Kobe reminded me, man, life is too short. And I reach out to my daughter, and I kiss her all the time because it reminds me, man, I may not be here tomorrow. You never know, man, when lightning strikes. And that's the Kobe Bryant had an impact on me to be a better dad. So when I give you that list of names, I want you to know that it goes into more than just going, hey, man, this guy ran for 1,000 yards, or this guy here was one of the greatest tacklers of all time. That's not how I look at people. I look at, what was that one guy in the 60s say? I look at the content of the character of the man. I think there's a special day in America for that. That's MLK Day, right? All right. We are going to talk to our friend Bruce Feldman. College football is going to be incredible this year. By the way, I'll ask him also what rookie quarterback does he think will have the biggest impact in the NFL this coming 2021 season. Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports is next right here on the National Football Show.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
The future waits for no one, so we refuse to wait for it. We're not just pilots and engineers. We are pioneers. Today, battles are waged in nanoseconds, and planes are piloted from the other side of the world. We turn night into day and fly missions in space. The future's not coming. It's already here. This is the future. Join us and be the future.
Welcome to the Wildwoods. The perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. We really appreciate everyone coming aboard here, as you always do now, every single Monday through Friday, 4 to 6. We're going to talk with our friend Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports, and we will get his thoughts on the upcoming college football season, and I'll ask him his thoughts on the NFL rookie class, who he thinks may have the best success this coming season. It's easy to point to Trevor Lawrence, but again, you're going with a coach that has absolutely no NFL experience whatsoever. Just because you were a success in the National Football League, that doesn't mean you're going to have success. When you're in the college ranks and you have that kind of success like Urban Meyer did, that doesn't mean you're going to have success in the National Football League. So we'll get his thoughts in on that as well. So we'll catch up with our friend here real quick. Speaking of the Jags, though, you've got to give the Jags credit for what they're trying to do. They're going to drop $441 million into the facilities. They're basically going to get this. You're in a position right now where you have to spend you have to drop that kind of money to upgrade your facilities, your stadium, because you've been so behind. You really haven't acted like an NFL franchise. You've acted kind of like a minor league team. If you've got to make those kind of upgrades to your stadium, to your practice facilities, to your locker rooms, what were you doing for the last 25 years? When players rolled into Jacksonville, they must have just absolutely were doing this. Man, I had it better at my college. I have better facilities at LSU than I do here now in Jacksonville. I noticed that when I went into the NFL. When I went from the University of Miami and I went into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this was back in the 80s. I'll never forget, the Buccaneers had a practice facility right near the airport. They had a trailer park thing that you walked into to talk with the media, and I was like this, what is this? It was like a trailer house. Then you had like a small building, and that's where all the team meetings were. It was so non-state of the art. Then there's certain places you go like Dallas, and you're over at Valley Ranch. You're like, this is dope. They had a mile track. They had an outside/inside weightlifting facility. They had like 50 jacuzzis. I was like, man, you really saw the difference wherever you went. And I was fortunate where I had a chance to go around to a couple teams. I played with the Lions and I played with the Cowboys and I did the Buccaneers as well. And you can really get a sense of the organizations that poured money in and the ones that really were just looking at it as a cash register, and the owners really weren't looking at trying to be a championship type football team. It still goes on to the day right now. I mean, I just got through telling you, they're going to drop over almost $1 million just in the practice field alone. So when you have to upgrade the stadium and you have to upgrade all of your facilities, dude, that just shows you, man, what were you doing when it came to trying to re-sign players? Jacksonville has not acted like an NFL team for the last 30 years. They've had some pretty good teams, like maybe 5 since their existence, but they really haven't been consistently anything because you know why? They didn't really care about being an NFL team. That's how I read that when I see that story. I see that story and I go like this. Hey, man, bottom line here is, these guys here never really poured in the money that it took really to be a successful franchise. Now you have Trevor Lawrence in the building. Now you have, and by the way, I'd be really embarrassed if I had Trevor Lawrence in the building. I have Urban Meyer in the building. And now all of a sudden I got Tim Tebow in the building. three of the most famous people you've probably ever had on that franchise at one time. And now we're relevant here. I'm sitting here. Look, I'm talking on June 3rd, and I'm talking Jaguar football. I can't remember in my entire 30 years doing broadcasting where I've been talking about the Jaguars on June 3rd, and I'm sitting here talking about a franchise that's been not relevant for a while. You have now made the Jags a polarizing team to cover. I don't know how good they're going to be. I just know that when I look at who they are, where they are right now, it makes it so that, hey, guess what? Here we are. We're talking Jags. So there's going to be a storyline here real soon. All right, let's go over to the college ranks here. And one of my favorite people to talk some college football with is my friend Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports. And we bring him on now. We're going to get him in here in a couple seconds here and talk with him about the upcoming landscape of the college game. Let me throw this at you here, too, before we bring him on here. So Alabama lost both receivers in the NFL draft in the first round. They lose their running back in the NFL draft. They lose their coordinator. He's now the head football coach at Texas. And get this. And the quarterback is now up in New England. Okay? He's in New England now. So, I mean, how is that football team being considered the number one team in the country by many of the pollsters who are saying that they are the preseason favorites to go back and win a national championship? It comes down to one guy. The one guy in the building is still Nick Saban. He's the greatest college football recruiter of all time. I don't know if he is a fantastic offensive guy, if he's a great defensive guy, which I think he is. But, I mean, you could debate X's and O's as a strategist when you're talking coaches, right? But there's no debating that when you look at the conveyor belt of players that have rolled through Alabama, I mean, make no mistake about it. Alabama is now what we were doing back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s at Miami, where you just have a conveyor belt of superstar players where you lose a guy, and at times you've got a guy that you're going to be able to be in a position where you can upgrade here. So you got to hand it to him, man. All right. Got to say it, man. One of my favorite people talking college football. We bring in our friend here, Bruce Feldman. He joins us now here on the National Football Show. Bruce, I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you so much.
Good to be on with you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Bruce, let me throw this at you. I just brought this up. Okay, so Alabama loses two wideouts in the NFL draft. They lose their running back in the first round. They lose their quarterback in the first round. Hell, let's even drop Steve Sarkisian into it. He's now the head football coach at Texas. How are they the preseason number one team in the country?
Because Nick Saban has proven time and time again that he's the best to ever do it in college football. He's recruited at such a high level, and he's getting the benefit of the doubt, right? Bryce Young, the quarterback we expect to be the next guy. A lot of people in the recruiting world have gushed over his ability. You've seen some really good players on defense. I think the thing we've seen more than anything is offensive coordinators and assistant coaches have come and gone, and Nick Saban is the one who makes it all work, and he plugs in the talent. And until there's a lot of other programs who are going to have big question marks too, right? Ohio State has to replace Justin Fields and a bunch of other really good players. Clemson has to replace Trevor Lawrence and a big-time running back in Travis Etienne. I mean, I don't know who you look at and go, okay, I'm more convinced that they can overtake Nick Saban this year.
Bruce, I think those programs that we mentioned too, that these guys are the greatest recruiters maybe in college football history. Dabo Swinney, he's the greatest interim coach I've ever seen, because everyone forgets he was actually the interim guy after Bowden was fired. He takes over that program, and all of a sudden he turns into being one of the greatest recruiters of all time. Look at what the cement that was laid there with Jim Tressel in Columbus. I mean, he's the guy that really turned that program around. Then they go to Urban Meyer. Finkel was in there, I believe, for a year. But then they go to Ryan Day. Are these three guys, are we just looking at the reason that we're seeing these three programs at the top of the rankings every single year is because it's not really so much about X's and O's. It's that these guys just know how to go out and get the right guys.
Well, I think it's definitely part of that, but I also think it is they have clearly defined cultures in what they do. Look, you mentioned Jim Tressel. He definitely had that when he left Youngstown to go to Ohio State, and he really took that to another level. Nick Saban has studied it and continued to evolve, and he has really created something unique. And I think to Dabo Swinney's credit, he has also done that as well. And I think there's been a lot of factors that have contributed to this. I mean, look, in the ACC, Dabo Swinney, once it really went to another level, Jimbo Fisher and Florida State started to really sink. And certainly Miami has not, to this point, reached any threshold in the ACC. Tennessee has fallen apart in the last dozen years. That was a program that that loaded up on a lot of talent in the same footprint that Clemson now has been cleaning up in. So I think it's a bunch of factors that all kind of happened together. And I think, look, recruits now more than ever see a level of success, and they feel like they have a feel of a program maybe through social media in ways that they didn't 10 years ago. So I think that definitely adds to it.
Bruce, do you think that Nick Saban has surpassed anything that Bear Bryant did at Alabama?
I do. I think in a lot of ways, because of the visibility on TV, because of scholarship limitations that didn't exist when Bear Bryant was coaching, I think it is harder to sustain success. Assistant coaches have come and gone, and it only keeps going. I mean, there's won 7 national titles and 6 in about the last dozen years. We've not seen anything like this to do it at this level. I don't think there's even a real strong case to make that he's not been the best coach. I mean, there are other great coaches who've been in college football, but just to do what he's done, I mean, we've never seen this level of sustained success when it is even harder because you can't just collect talent. Kids will transfer now way more readily than they ever did before. You can only sign so many kids. Back when, 30, 40 years ago, you could load up on recruits and almost like just collect them so your rivals couldn't have them. So I think because of all those factors, it's even more remarkable what he's done there.
Absolutely. I mean, back in my time, you could have 100 guys on scholarship, and they were doing it just to keep them away from Florida State. That leads me to this. You think the dynasty that Saban has built was better than what we did in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s? Miami?
Yeah, I mean, what's different is with Miami, there were real dips in that stretch, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
There were scholarship sanctions. I mean,
Yep.
Do I think there was a team that Alabama's had that was more talented than the one that Ed Reed and Brian McKinney and Sean Taylor were on 20 years ago? I don't think that. But again, like Saban, just in his time there, once he got it rolling, and it didn't take him that long to get it rolling. I mean, he was 12-2 in his second year there, and they were a top 10 team. They have not finished outside of the top 10 from 2008 to 2020. And most of those years it was top 4. Miami didn't have that level of, there were dips in there. There was. And also what went into it, Dan, as you well know, it was like Howard really built it. Jimmy built on it. Dennis came in and put a different spin on it. But there were some rocky moments in there, 3 different coaches. Then the sanctions hit. It took Bush a while to build it up. And so, again, like Miami, you go from 83 to 2001. That's a longer window. But there were much more ups and downs in that stretch.
Absolutely. Let's get into a little bit what we experienced last year with COVID. And Bruce, correct me if you think I'm wrong here on this. I just think that the advantages that the ACC and Southeastern Conference and the Big 12 are going to get over the next couple of years in recruiting, and also the visibility of the fact that they went and barreled through it instead of what the Big 10 and what the Pac-12 did by wobbling. And I'm not debating what was right or wrong here. I'm just debating the visual stuff where kids are going to say, hey, they went through it. Look at what the SEC did. They just took a loan out, gave all 10 institutions almost $25 million. It's not going to cover all the COVID, but I'm not hearing any other conference rifling off $25 million. And get this, they're going to pay it back over the next 3 years because of this tremendous TV deal that they just signed, I think with ESPN, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah.
I mean, these guys have really benefited from the fact that they barreled through it. And I got to tell you, too, I don't know how that's fair to Conference USA or Mountain West or some of these other small conferences, or even the Pac-12, who just got a new commissioner. How do you see this whole thing over the last couple of years here, and now with COVID going forward with how college football will look?
Well, it's not. I mean, there's nothing about fairness as it relates. As much as the NCAA can talk about it, I mean, there's not an equity between the Big Ten and the MAC, and there's certainly not an equity between the SEC and Conference USA or the Sun Belt. So. And they can be Power 5 schools, but the difference between the ACC and even the SEC it has always been different, right? It's just I think now the SEC has a big robust TV deal that's coming down the pipe, and I think that will obviously resonate with all those programs in financial windfall, and so. I mean, that's what happens when you win almost national titles every year in football, right? So it's just a reality.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that. They're like the Premier League. They're the Premier League of college football now, where, they were going to go through it, whether Big Ten played or not. I mean, I just wonder, and I guess maybe where I'm rolling towards, Bruce, is, I mean, are we going to see eventually a different level of college football where it's going to be? Because if you look at the top 15, every year it's the same top 5. It's Clemson, Ohio State. You throw in Notre Dame, you got Georgia, maybe you have an outlier in LSU, but they're the same dudes. Are we going to eventually see that next level where they're not going to be NCAA sanctioned? It's going to be something different, because if you're San Diego State, you go undefeated, you have no chance in hell of getting in the Final Four. You have no chance whatsoever. If you're Cincinnati even getting into the Final Four, are we rolling towards that?
We're already there. I mean, it's just a matter of,
cool.
I mean, look, Cincinnati, you made that example. You look what happened last year. They kept on, they were kind of at a glass ceiling on it. And I don't want to say it's an unspoken reality, because I think most people already know it, but it's just the way it's been for a long time. And I just think that, you may get some lip service to people saying, yeah, you have a chance, but it's such an uphill battle. The odds are ridiculously slim.
Couple last questions for you, Bruce. The expansion, we just kind of touched on it a little bit, of the college football playoff. I mean, how do you look at that? Do you think we're going to be rolling towards that in the next 2 years? They're already starting to kick the can down the road where they're looking at that right now. Do you see that in the next 2 years where they're going to revamp it?
I don't know if it's in the next 2 years, but if there's more money in it, I think they will do it. I think it really comes down to the basic economics of that. And right now, I think we see more and more examples of money talks, and a lot of institutions, certainly in college athletics as well, have been hit hard financially. So that's only going to add to the incentive.
Absolutely. I have to ask you before you leave here, the rookie quarterbacks that are in the NFL this year, the Trevor Lawrences and the Justin Fields, just a gut feeling, next 3 years, in your opinion, who do you think is going to have the better NFL start to his career?
Well, that's a good question. Of those guys, I mean, they're all in really unique circumstances. I would not be surprised if Trey Lance ended up, 3 or 4 years from now is in the best position. Now, he's the one who he's really only had one real full year of college football action, and it was at a FCS program, albeit a powerhouse at North Dakota State. But he went into a really good system. The people I know who've been around him really rave about his intangibles. He also has a terrific arm. He's very athletic. He's a big, strong kid, but he's also really, really sharp. I think it's a quarterback-friendly system, whereas right now, and all quarterbacks have to be franchise guys if they're good. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has so much on his back, taking over a really downtrodden program with a, first-time NFL head coach in Urban Meyer. Trevor Lawrence would be the easiest pick on this, but the circumstances are a little different, right? So I don't know. If I had to say it, I would say I wouldn't bet against Trevor Lawrence, but watch out for Trey Lance. I really think there's something there that, 3 or 4 years from now, I think it could really pay off big for the Niners.
Bruce, I sent in my Hall of Fame vote for the College Football Hall of Fame. I put Reggie Bush on it. Do you have a problem with that?
No, I mean, look, I work with Reggie, so I would have a problem if I had a problem with it. No, I mean, he's a phenomenal. Was a phenomenal player on a juggernaut offense, and he's one of the most dynamic players college football has ever seen. I think he's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Bruce, thank you so much for doing this, man. I appreciate your time. Know you get swamped. Little downtime right now. That's why I reached out to you. Thank you so much, Bruce.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dan. Good talking with you.
You got it. Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports, covers college football. Yeah, no question about it. I didn't have any issues on putting Reggie Bush on my Hall of Fame ballot. All right, we'll take a timeout. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. Always great to catch up with Bruce Feldman. You'll know this, okay? I am a gigantic college football guy. Okay, I really am. I love the pageantry of college football. I love the fact that, many of the guys that you'll see play on Saturdays, you may not see on Sundays. But these guys give it all. And they love playing for their school. If you ask the majority of the NFL guys, and I do this, one of my favorite questions to ask NFL guys, would you enjoy playing more on Saturdays or Sundays? I asked Eric Dickerson this question years ago, and Eric goes, I love playing for SMU. I love my NFL career. I love my Hall of Fame career. And he was probably the best running back I've ever played against. One of the toughest men I've ever played against, too. And he was so dynamic as a college football player at SMU. And he was just as electric as an NFL guy with the Rams and Colts. But make no mistake about it, he'll tell you, man, I love running with the Pony Express, and I love being part of SMU. So, I just love college football. So as we get closer to the fall, be ready. Nick Saban will join us. We'll have a whole boatload of those coaches on with us because I've formed great relationships over the years with those guys. All right. So a comment was made by Dan Marino. And I've had a hot and cold relationship with Dan over the years. And with no disrespect to him at all. People ask me, how do you look at Dan Marino's football career? Hey, when he left the game, he owned just about every passing record that there was. That's all you can ask a player, right? Were you one of the dominant arms during your era? And were you one of the dominant players at your respected position? You could easily make the comment that Dan Marino was in the conversation. I still think Joe Montana was the greatest quarterback, but people could debate. He was on also the greatest team. Let's not forget that great defense that they had on the other side of the football, where Dan really didn't have that, luxury of having Ronnie Lott on the other side of the football when he played in Miami, correct? And you probably couldn't name a running back that played with Dan Marino in Miami. But you could, with Roger Craig and Tom Rathman and Jerry Rice playing wideout and John Taylor on the other side. There were numerous guys that you could circle, and you could say Montana played with a lot of great players. Duper and Clayton in Miami. I get it. But there wasn't really a complete team in Miami. So, who was the better pure quarterback? You could probably say Dan Marino at that time. Elway was in that era as well. Joe beat them both, though. So it's been kind of different. Don Shula never had respect for Bill Belichick for whatever reason. Just never had respect for him. And the whole Spygate stuff always rubbed Don Shula the wrong way. Now, I look at Spygate. You're trying to tell me you don't think coaches are trying to steal signals on the sidelines? They do it in baseball every day. What did Bill Cowher say the other day, the Hall of Fame coach now with CBS? What did he say? He goes, it's not cheating until you get caught. Meaning that he's probably implying that even the Steelers did it. Because when he was asked the question, he never said, we never did anything like that. He says, hey, it's cheating if you get caught. Hey, people trying to steal. I'll tell you something that coaches used to do when you had opposing teams come into a respected city. Get this, I'll tell you what teams used to tell us all the time. I remember the Buccaneers telling us this all the time. Don't ever leave your playbooks and don't throw anything that you've written down game-related in a trash can. Do you know what some teams do? They hire people to go into the players' rooms when they leave to see if they've written down anything the night before a game where they could get maybe some heads up on audibles, maybe the first 3 plays of the game, anything that could give them advantage. Coaches used to do that all the time. That is an Al Davis trick. They would set up the hotels for teams to come in from out of town, like the Chargers. And what they would do is they would go into the hotels when they were on their way to the stadium, and guys would go in there and take a look at the rooms, seeing if anything was left behind. Is that cheating? Or is that gamesmanship? All those little things. What, you don't think teams did that? Or how about this? Those pregame warm-ups that players and coaches do prior to getting ready for a regular season NFL game? You don't think you have guys out there from the opposing team that are listening for cadences and listening for audible color changes? Black 89, black 89. That was the absolute gold standard for the 49ers. Anything black 80, black 89, something like that was always that Joe was changing the play. They never changed it because no one could stop it. So you knew kind of what was going on out there. Is that cheating or is that gamesmanship? Well, the whole Spygate thing never really was important to the success of the Patriots. How many Super Bowls did they win? Now, does it create a aura about the franchise that they go over the gray line? Absolutely. The Raiders had that for decades. So some teams are going to do things above board and some teams aren't. They're going to stretch the rules. Is New England notoriously known for stretching the rules? Absolutely. Absolutely, right? Don Shula had a problem with that. Okay. So Dan Marino went on a radio show yesterday and basically said that he prays that Bill Belichick doesn't break Don Shula's all-time single-season record for the most wins. It's pretty much the only record that Belichick doesn't have now, and that's pretty much the only thing left that I would think that he's really in search of, is to be the all-time winningest coach. Who wouldn't want that? And what makes that crazy is he's already the winningest coach in postseason history. He's got the most Super Bowls of all time. Why not own a record that puts you ahead of Don Shula and George Halas? I mean, when you start saying those names and you start putting that in context on what George Halas meant to the league, he's one of the founders really of the NFL. And then you had Don Shula, who was able to evolve over all those decades with different type of teams, coaching games like the Super Bowl III where they lost to Namath, those great undefeated teams that he had with the Dolphins, the Dan Marino years that we mentioned, all the legendary wins, really transforming the Miami Dolphins. I mean, when you think of coaches in the NFL, Don Shula's name will come up in the conversation of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport. I mean, let's not forget, too, during that era when Shula was winning championships, you had the Raider dynasty going, you had the Steeler dynasty going, you had the Cowboy dynasty going. Man, it wasn't – you see, it was harder to win Super Bowls back then consistently because you didn't have salary caps. You could keep the same guys for 10 years, and you could pay them whatever, and they were your property, basically. You could keep the same guys on your team pretty much a decade. Whereas today, salary cap ramifications, it's a constantly changing and evolving roster every year because of money, players' contracts coming up. That's why, how crazy was it when, we were talking about the Buccaneers bringing everybody back? Hey, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, that was a common theme, bringing everybody back. That wasn't an anomaly, okay? Now it's like, wow, they brought everybody back. Hey, man, they brought everybody back? Wow, okay. Well, back then. So to hear Dan do that, that's okay. That's his guy. I don't shoot that down that Dan's rooting against Bill Belichick. Hell, man, Jimmy Johnson, and someone would ask me, do you think there's a better coach in NFL history than what Jimmy did? And I said, no, man. I mean, Coach Johnson, being around him, that's all I know. That's really pretty much all Dan knew. He pretty much knew two coaches in his life, Jackie Sherrill at Pitt and Don Shula with the Dolphins. All those years playing in Miami and those 4 years that he had in Pittsburgh when he played at Pitt, he had Jackie Sherrill there. So, I mean, those were the only two guys he has ever known. I don't have a problem. People are going like, oh, it's sour grapes. It's not sour grapes. You're always going to stick up for your guy. The conversation used to always aggravate Don Shula. And by the way, I used to do some work with Don Shula. His restaurants used to be really important to our shows when I was broadcasting down in Florida. So, I got a chance to talk with Don numerous times. And, Don's like this. He goes, Marino's the greatest thing I've ever seen, man. Throw the football. He's just the best I've ever seen. I go, what about Elway and Montana? He goes, nah, those guys, man, it was Don always looked at it like this. It was my fault for not putting a championship team around Dan Marino. He really took that to his grave. And he said that to me numerous times. man, it was my responsibility to put a championship team around him, and I could never just ever do that. All right. I am a big fan of List. I love List. My top 10 NFL players for the 2021 season. We're going to do that in the second hour. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J-Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. Bottom of the hour, we'll have our friend Rob Stone from Fox Sports. USFL making news. I know, USFL? What? Last time they played was 1985. Incredible, man. That's when they closed up the season, and we will talk with him about that. The NFL, we'll talk to him about college football. That'll be all at the bottom of the hour. Our friend Rob Stone, the anchor for college football game day with Fox Sports, and also looks like the USFL as well. So that'll be there at the bottom of the hour. All right. I'm a big fan of List. I love List. You know, it's something that I do every year. You know, I'll put together the top 10 teams that I think will play into a position where I think that, you know, they potentially could play for a playoff spot. I also look at the players. I look at coaches. I look at everything. I just love doing that because what I do is at the beginning of the year, and we all know this, football, college or pro, the war of attrition plays a factor. How does that team look as we start the season in September versus how we see the team later in the year? You know, how many times have we go, man, that team, like look at the Steelers as a great example. Steelers a year ago got out to a sensational start, right? Sensational start. And they ended up going 1-5 down the line at the end of the season. Just tripped all over themselves. So, I mean, it's always great to see because you can always get a sense, and I always throw a list out during the regular season too, the teams that are getting better. You can always see teams, like the Buccaneers are a great example of it. Okay? Bucks after that Chicago game on a Thursday night that Brady forgot like it was fourth down. By the way, that is absolutely one of the greatest TikToks I've seen a pro athlete do. Brady's talking about, the touchdown prior to going into the half where his boy got behind the defender. They ended up getting that 7. Bowling Green's best. Look at that, man. No risk it, no biscuit. Let's go. Oh, my God. I love that, man. He is having such a fantastic time being away from all the rigid stuff that was going on in New England. I wonder if Bill Belichick is watching what's going on in Tampa with Brady, and he sees the player now enjoying his life, enjoying who he is, enjoying what he's accomplished, but all in the same time, striving for another goal. That's the cool thing. That's what's making Brady different. This Tom Brady's different because he's enjoying what he's accomplished, right? Yet in the same time, he's still laser focused on what's next. I think that's such a hard act and such a hard balancing act for professional athletes to achieve. I think LeBron does a poor job of it. Balancing his great accomplishments with what's next. I think LeBron James gets frustrated a lot because he sees something slipping away. Like tonight against the Suns, this will be the first time that LeBron James, if they do lose the Lakers, that he will leave and exit an NBA playoff in the first round in his entire illustrious career. And he knows that's hanging out there. And that bugs him. Whereas I don't think that would bug Brady. I think Brady would lean on his past and go, okay, so I got bumped. Who cares? Brady's last pass as a New England Patriot was an interception. Okay, do you think it really bugs him or he even thinks that his last play in New England was an INT? I don't think he thinks that way. Because the last pass that he just threw last year, okay, had a result in him winning a Super Bowl. Brady probably looks at it like, hey, man, let's move on. Let's go. But I'm watching a guy who's really enjoying himself. I think it's pretty cool. You're watching a guy grow into who he is. LeBron has been talking about who he is for all these years, but Brady's finally figuring it out. It's cool, man. It's all right if I talk a little bit about some of the things we've done. All right. So let me get into my top 10 players as we go into the 2021 season. And these are everybody. It's not quarterbacks. I know we get tired, of just throwing those guys' names out all the time. But these are the top 10 players as I see them, okay? I'll start at 10 and work my way up to 1. I got Derrick Henry. Of all the people that are not a quarterback, who would you say is the most valuable player, not a quarterback, that is an offensive player in the league? Travis Kelce? Okay, well, you got to throw the ball to him. Whereas all you do is hand the ball to Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry has taken that Titans team with that limited offense and that limited passing attack to an AFC championship game and to consecutive playoff appearances. He's the leading rusher in the NFL. I mean, could you really – you're not going to put a wide receiver in front of him. Are you? I mean, if you're going to talk about a player, or I would say this, there's probably other guys out there, and I know I have some guys in my top 10 that are wideouts. But if I had to have a guy be my bell cow, man, There's no other running back that I would have on my list other than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's the best back in the league. And I don't really – Alvin Kamara, okay. I like Alvin Kamara. I like what he does with the Saints. Versatile player, can catch the ball out of the backfield, can run in between the tackles. He's a sensational back as well. Okay, big fan of Alvin Kamara, but Derrick Henry at number 10, man. This guy, I call him the movable refrigerator. He just rolls, man. Incredible what he has accomplished. At number 9, one of my favorite young prospects. I absolutely love what I'm seeing with Josh Allen. I think the Buffalo Bill quarterback has done this every single year that he's been under the guidance of Sean McDermott, the coach of the Bills. He is just growing and growing and growing every single game. You see it. Let's not forget how he got to Buffalo. Remember those tweets that they found years ago when he was younger? They had a little racial tone to him. First thing he had to do when he walked into the Buffalo Bills locker room was apologize to some of the players in there for his immaturity. And he had an uphill battle. I mean, the first thing you want to do when you walk onto a new job is you don't want to say you're sorry to the people you don't even know already, but you had to. And what has happened over the last 3 years? Well, he's now in a position where he's going to get a wealthy contract extension. They absolutely are in love with the guy. You see a little Jim Kelly in it. And he has transformed the Buffalo Bills into just being a good football team into being a Super Bowl contending football team. This is what everything you sign up for when you're trying to find that franchise quarterback. This is everything you want in a player. This is everything you are striving for when you're trying to evaluate that position. You got it right here. I got Josh Allen at number 9. At number 8, I got TJ Watt, defensive outside linebacker, rush end from the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Pittsburgh defense is a Super Bowl defense. They just need to get their crap together on the other side of the football. I think Ben Roethlisberger, I think he's pretty much out of gas. And I think the only reason that the Steelers ended up bringing Ben Roethlisberger's butt back was because they believe in stability. And I think they believe that they didn't have the starting quarterback in their quarterback room when you're talking about Dwayne Haskins or you're talking about some of the other dudes that they have in that room. I just don't believe that they think they have the guy. So they brought him back. They'll probably go out in the offseason either looking for a veteran guy or they'll evaluate one of the young quarterbacks. Somebody will emerge out of the college ranks where they'll end up going after him. But they need a quarterback. You know, plain and simple, they need somebody in there that's going to be able to move the sticks and rely on that defense that they have on the other side of the football. Cam Hayward's a hell of a football player too. But TJ Watts has turned out to be one of the absolute best rush ends in the NFL. Big fan of his. At number 7, I got Russell Wilson. Can you imagine what the Seahawks would be without Russell Wilson? What would they be? You take him, and you're right. You take pretty much any starting quarterback off of any of the elite NFL teams, like Green Bay. You take Aaron Rodgers off that Green Bay team, they might win 5 games, right? They might win 5. But Russell Wilson has done, and I love his journey. You got to remember, here's a guy that played all those years at NC State. Head football coach, new one gets in there, and they ended up going to Russell Wilson. And they told Russell Wilson, get this, you're going to have to transfer because we're giving the job to Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon, who is the perennial journeyman quarterback now in the NFL next to Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is a younger Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's kind of good. He's safe. He's not going to get you killed, but he's not a frontline starter guy. They told Russell Wilson he had it, so he transfers to Wisconsin. I mean, really not every NFL team believed in him too, because he got drafted in the 3rd round, I believe, from the Seahawks, right? Seahawks go out and they get Matt Flynn, who was a backup quarterback, like a Mike Glennon in Green Bay. They signed him to like an $18 million contract. They bring in Wilson. They draft him in the 3rd round. Pete Carroll watches this guy run around, and he's doing this. Holy cow. This guy's way better. Remember what happened during that camp? Matt Flynn never saw a starting assignment in the NFL as a member of the Seahawks because Wilson beat him out. Plain and simple. Hey, there was even an even more crazy story that for like 3 years there, or 2 years maybe, Tavares Jackson, who was the backup quarterback, made more money than what Russell Wilson did as a starter because he was on a third-round rookie contract. He was the backup quarterback, made more money than Russell Wilson did, I think maybe for the first 2 years. Then they got wise and they started paying him some money, but I mean, he's just started making money. Now he's carried the franchise, and now he's kicking tires. He wants to make the team better. I think he's built up enough equity where you can make that comment, okay, that it's cool that he's barking. But what did the Seahawks do? The Seahawks went out, and they ended up doing whatever it took to appease the guy. They got DK Metcalf last year. They drafted another wide receiver this year. They did all the things that it took to make Russell Wilson pick his head up and look around and go, yeah, man, you see the Instagram pictures of him in a Seahawks helmet? I'm committed. I'm all about one thing. And get this, he's not even in Seattle. He's someplace like Arizona training. But he's all in on Seattle now. And that's a great thing. At number 6, Davante Adams. Boy, I think this kid can play, man. What an absolutely gifted wide receiver. Now, I don't traditionally like to put wide receivers in my top 10 because they're so reliant on so many things. Do you have a good quarterback? Do you have a good play caller? Do you have a good organization? Think about the most reliable positions. You got to snap the ball. The quarterback's got to take the ball. He's got to not throw over your head, behind you, whatever, to get you the ball. And then you make an impact, and you basically only touch the football, 7 times max as an average every game? That's a lot for me to sit there and put receivers in the top 10. But because you have Aaron Rodgers, the most accurate quarterback in NFL history, I have to do that. How about this? I probably don't put Davante Adams in my top 10 if Aaron Rodgers is not his quarterback. You're like, well, then do you think? No, I think there's talented guys at the position and very athletic guys at the position. But you have to have the signal caller to get you to rock. And Rodgers spins it as good as anybody. So not a real fan of putting receivers in my top 10, but he's some talent. I'm okay with tight ends. And I got Travis Kelce at number 5. Kelce has become the biggest mismatch on the field when it comes to an air attack. When he gets on the line of scrimmage, he's an above average blocker. Now, look, in his prime, Gronk's 10 times better. Gronk as a player is one of the most undefensible guys I've ever seen. You can't put a linebacker on him and lead him up at 6'6". He's got some of the best hands I've ever seen. He's got Chris Carter hands. He's a hell of a player. And see, this is why Gronk can still be a factor today, is because Gronk is great when it comes to the run game. He can block. Travis Kelce, a tick down from Gronk when it comes to being a blocker. And I think he bitches a little more. However, his hands are as good, if not better, than Gronkowski. Gronk's the entire package. Travis Kelce is just insane great. And here again, what makes him great is the fact that he's got a tremendous spinner of the football in Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes gets him the football. He's accurate. He's dangerous on the move. And when you get Kelce out there in open space, he's one of those guys too. Open space, he gets that yards after the catch, and he is a terror to bring down. One of the major reasons, and by the way, I thought that was one of the major flaws in that Super Bowl, that they didn't go to him enough. Man, I'd have targeted him 25 times in that football game. You didn't have any kind of running game going. I would have did everything in my power to try to get him open. Buccaneers, though, put a guy on him, lined him up, jammed him at the line of scrimmage, and that really kind of pretty much took that passing attack away from Kansas City. They knew Kansas City couldn't run the ball. So what they did was they said this: if we stop Kelce, they're going to win, because they couldn't run the rock. And that's what they did. They put a man on him. Kelsey couldn't get off the line of scrimmage, and they had issues because their offensive tackles were not in the ball game. There were a lot of fundamental flaws for Kansas City in that Super Bowl. All right. I got Brady at 4. I know some of you are probably going, Brady at 4? Yeah, he's 44 going into the season. And I think if you're in the top 5, I think you could kind of pretty much roll these guys around any way you want, shake them up, and just, let the dice fall where they may. And so I'm okay with doing this. Okay, so Brady's 4, just won a 7th championship. What else is there to be said about Tom? Let's take a look at it. Is he a good teammate? Yes. Does he have an above-average arm? Absolutely. Is he mobile? Not really. I'll tell you what he is, though. He's the best 4th-and-1 quarterback sneak guy in NFL history. Have you ever seen Tom Brady not get a first down on 4th-and-1? I've never seen him not get that. He's great on that play. It's one of his great signature plays. He's great at knowing where the ball is needing to be put. I mean, he is so good at that. His smarts of the game is just getting better and better and better and better. I mean, he is really a walk. When they say that line, he's a walking coach. He truly is a walking coach. Aaron Rodgers, I got 3rd. I think Aaron Rodgers is arguably one of the greatest passers the NFL has ever seen. And where he plays in 2021, I still think it's Green Bay. Rodgers on the move, too, getting out in the perimeter. He is so dynamic, man. 48 touchdowns, 5 picks. What's left to be said? Number 2, I got Aaron Donald. Man. Aaron Donald, man. Tackles for losses, sacks. Is he a Hall of Famer now with some of the statistics that he's put together? NFL Player of the Year. God. Incredible player, man. And Dave Wannstedt, by the way, recruited him at the University of Pittsburgh. What a great football player. And he's 6 feet, 270. That's what makes that even more insane. And you got Mahomes. I kind of pretty much with Kelsey said everything that you have. And he's still growing into the position. And now he's going to be paid for being the best player in the NFL. He is the best player in the NFL. $500 million, 10 years. Make no mistake about it. Mahomes is the guy, man. And Kansas City will be in a Super Bowl hunt every year. All right. We'll switch gears. We're going to talk to our friend Rob Stone from Fox Sports. We'll do it next. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show with your boy Dan Sileo. Rob Stone, our friend from Fox Sports, going to join us here in a couple minutes. Get his thoughts on USFL, Urban Meyer, Reggie Bush, everything going football. And they do such a good job with that pregame show. And I love the fact that we're talking a little bit of college football as we're getting ready for the upcoming 2021 season. No question about it. Alabama's got to be considered the top team. Maybe. Is there an outlier out there? Georgia, potentially, with JT Daniels. We shall see if Rob thinks that team is going to be in the conversation. Maybe even Ohio State again. Will they be in that conversation? What Jim Harbaugh, too. When do we see him emerge as a guy to take that Michigan program? You know what's funny about that Michigan program? You know, I tell people this all the time. People constantly are throwing shade at Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. And I get it. You have to beat the guy down south. You have to beat Ohio State. Okay, John Cooper had a fantastic record at Ohio State. But John Cooper did not beat Michigan enough. I think he only had one win or something like that. That wasn't going to be good enough for the Ohio State faithful for them to be able to go, hey, John was a really fine coach. Earl Bruce was a fine coach. I think actually even Earl Bruce may have had a winning record against Michigan, but it wasn't good enough for the Ohio State alum. You know, when you coach at Alabama, beating Auburn's important. When you've got your rival and you're at one of those Tiffany programs and you're at USC, you have to beat UCLA. You have to beat them. You're not going to get hall passes, okay? You're just not. When you're at Texas, you got to beat OU. When you're OU, you got to beat Texas. Miami, FSU, all that stuff. So make no mistake about that. You've got to beat your rival. You're not going to be given hall passes. But here's what I always tell you about with Jim Harbaugh, and people give him a lot of hell. Bo Schembechler never won a national championship in his time at Michigan. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they only finished second once maybe in his entire coaching career in Ann Arbor. It wasn't like they were ripping off national titles under Bo Schembechler. And again, the only thing that truly covered it, and hey, and for the record, Bo's Rose Bowl record was underwater. He wasn't a very winning coach when it came to winning that Rose Bowl, but he did beat Woody. And the 10-year war, he ended up having a better record than Woody. And that's why people look at him and they go like this. Man, I mean, this guy's one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. Now, Woody Hayes won 4 national championships. I think he won 4, maybe 5. If I'm not mistaken. I know Woody's got a pretty lengthy resume when it comes to winning national championships. But Jim's only flaw right now, he's actually made Michigan State irrelevant. I mean, Michigan State relevant now? Really? I don't think so. I think, that program's got a long way to go on climbing back up the Big Ten hill. I mean, he's actually done a great job in recruiting the Michigan area. He's made his rival not relevant when it comes to recruiting. He's beaten that program now. Now, you've got to beat top 10 teams. I get it, especially when you're making that kind of money. Jim Harbaugh, I was not shocked that Michigan ended up giving him a contract extension. I wasn't shocked. You got to remember something about him too. Okay? He can get any job he wants. All right. Love talking college and pro football with my next friend here. He is Rob Stone, and he joins me here on the National Football Show. How you doing, Rob?
Good, Dan. How are you, man? Good to see you again. I like the old Buccaneer gear behind you, by the way.
Absolutely, man. Got the first day I was a Buccaneer over here, over my shoulder here.
Nice.
Got my Miami Hurricane football. I showed Coach Johnson. These are all the footballs that Coach Jimmy and Dave Wonstadt, who you work with, gave me there back with my Miami days here too. So not a bad little collection, huh?
No, it's nice.
Yeah, it got the national championship rings. I love it. All right, big news here for Fox today, man. The USF. I mean, I woke up this morning and I thought I was in a time warp. I was like, wait a minute. The USFL. You know, Rob, last year I watched the XFL, and I watched all that stuff a couple of years ago when the league was in, and the AAF. I was watching all that stuff, man. I mean, I'm a fan of spring football. Are you?
I think you said the buzzword there, watching, right? You're watching. So if eyeballs are watching, that tells you there's a home, there's a place, there's an interest, there's an appetite for it. I had no idea this was coming, and I'm old enough, I'm mature enough where the not the EJFL, when you say what the USFL is, I know what you're talking about, right? Like, here come the Tampa Bay Bandits. All right, here comes the Houston Gamblers. Here comes the LA Express. So, the nostalgic part of me enjoys it, but it's clear that there's this appetite for football. Look, there's a reason NFL and college football are Beast A and Beast 1A in the world of sports here in this country. And for years and years, people have looked at the calendar and said, well, why do we have to have these long stretches without quality football? So, obviously what we've seen through the XFL, what we've seen through the Spring Football League right now on Fox Sports is, there's an interest in there. And if there's a way that I think the different commodities can kind of work together, I think this is a good thing for football as a whole. And clearly it's a good thing for the viewer. And it's interesting what that does to the XFL dynamic. I think there's space for all entities, but maybe this is a race to try and beat them to the punch and try to own that spring summer market right now.
Absolutely. I think the more the merrier. We see storylines like Kurt Warner. We had him on last Friday, and if it wasn't for the old World League of American Football or the Arena League, we never hear of Kurt Warner. I mean, so I think there's guys out there that, because there's only 53 men on an NFL roster. I mean, Rob, some guys get squeezed out. I mean, Terrell Davis makes the final cut with the Denver Broncos years ago, and he was a special teams guy. And, Mike Shanahan goes, let me keep the guy. He turns out to be a Hall of Fame running back. So there are guys, I think, that are out there that will benefit from this.
100%. I mean, just look at all the talent that you see, every Friday and Saturday in college football right now. There's so many guys who say, well, they have to have a home, right? Their career can't just end here after the Alamo Bowl, right? Or after the college football playoffs. These dudes have got talent and skill that need to continue. And I think there's that understanding. And if you look at all the other major leagues in the United States, they all have some type of system in play beyond just the collegiate system where they're saying, hey, let's have a place where we can kind of farm this talent, let them grow. Because as you know, not every seed sprouts at the same rate. There's a lot of dudes that could not play Division I college football when they were juniors and seniors in high school, but when they became sophomores or juniors, they were elite level. And I think it's the same thing when you go to that professional level. Hey, these guys are just starting to understand themselves in college, but you give them a season under some good coaching at a lower level. All of a sudden, the big boys at the NFL say, you know what, this kid can cut it. Let's give him an opportunity. And it's stories like that hook me, and it's also the stories of, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He's still kicking that can down the road, trying to make it. I want to cheer for these people.
Let me throw some topics off you here, college and pro here. Urban Meyer, you had a chance to work around him, obviously sitting on the desk there for your college football pregame. I always kind of thought maybe there was an itch for him to get back into coaching. I wasn't sure if it was ever going to get back into the college ranks. He had an opportunity, obviously. One of the marquee jobs was open. That was Texas. And I know that there was probably some conversation that went back and forth, but then the opportunity came to run his own ship in the NFL, and that was in Jacksonville. Give me your sense, just being around him and working around him, how you think this thing plays out here as an NFL head coach. Because we've seen coaches flop, but we've also seen guys like Pete Carroll and Jimmy Johnson take what they learned in the college ranks to the next level in the NFL.
Buy stock in Jacksonville.
Huh?
It's as simple as that. They've got a good young nucleus, crushed it with the draft. You've got a head coach who is eager to excel again at that next level, that next challenge. He's surrounded himself by people that he trusts and has had success with. He's got an owner that is invested on multiple levels. You saw the news that came out today about Jacksonville talking about creating this new playground, if you will, outside the stadium for the training facility, just like we saw in Tampa Bay. This is a franchise that has huge growth potential for me, and dudes want to go play in Florida. You know that, right? I mean, there was a reason Tampa Bay was like the sleeping giant for so long, because I lived there and I said, why wouldn't anybody, much less a pro athlete, want to come here? I get it. It's hot, but it's beautiful, and the water, and it's gorgeous. I think the Orlandos, the Tampas, the Miamis kind of hog that conversation. But I think there's going to be a lot of free agent recruits that slide into Jacksonville and go, oh, well, this is pretty nice. Like I don't understand. Like what's wrong with this? And you got a coach who's invested, and you have an owner that wants to put money up and wants to win right now. To me, I think Urban stepped into just a perfect situation. That, and the fact that he has been given almost complete football control, which is what he wanted. And I think he saw the landscape in college athletics changing rapidly. Look, there's a reason Roy Williams and Coach K checked out of college basketball. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not an old man's game anymore. That dynamic has changed. What's going on? You see everything that's going on with the transfer portals and what's coming with NIL. And I think there's a lot of not old school coaches, but older coaches who say, wait a second, like I can excel, but I know how to excel under these parameters. And now these lines are getting pushed sideways and north and south. And I don't know if I need to relearn, and maybe I'm not cut out for this type of gig right now. But with the NFL, it's still kind of the NFL. And yeah, there's always tweaks and some variances and things that appear and disappear. But in the end, I think Urban looked at it and said, I got an owner I trust who's giving me control, who trusts me to do these decisions. And let me tell you, Urban plays to win, right? It was like Michael Jordan throwing the coins, right, with the security guy against the wall. Like Urban is there to win those coin tosses, right? Urban is not there to have a 500 record. I'll tell you that right now.
Let me throw this at you too. I said this, the reason that Tebow's being brought into Jacksonville, I think everyone in the media is missing it, because I had a conversation with Dave Wannstedt, and you work with Dave, as I said, and also with Jimmy Johnson. When Jimmy and those guys walked into the Dallas Cowboys, they signed as many Miami Hurricane guys as they possibly could. It wasn't because they were in favor of us playing over the next guy. They're there to win, like you said. But what they were doing is they were bringing guys who were going to tell the other players what the culture is going to be in the room. Like when someone asked me, I'll never forget Crawford Kerr asking me, had Too Tall Jones, all these guys, Randy White. I went like this. I could be cut. Anybody in this room could be cut. These guys are in here to win. Nobody cares. However, I want to tell you, know this, 90% of this room will be gone, because if you're not going to follow along with their process, you're not going to be in the process to win. That's how I saw Tebow being brought in, to really set the culture. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Culture is paramount in any locker room, and you know that. And my experience as a local Cub reporter in Tampa, when it went from Sam Weiss to Tony Dungy, you literally could feel a temperature change in the locker room when Tony walked in, and you would go, this is different. This isn't the way it used to be. He changed that culture. And he did it through a wide range of abilities. And one of the ways you can do it is bring in your guys who've been there and have seen it and can educate you. So Tebow 100% fits that mold. What's curious to me about Tebow is that this is a guy that wasn't in the NFL, right? If you had a guy who's your guy, who's been in the NFL and done it and is still there, and then you pull him to Jacksonville, all right, that starts making more sense. But now you got a guy who's a minor league baseball player and a commentator, and now you're dropping him in at an age where there is some difference in age for sure right now, with what Tim is and what Tim was and what Tim is are two different people right now. But he'll always be that great human as far as DNA and work ethic and understanding and leadership and Urban. I think Urban looks at Tim almost as one of his kids, as one of his sons, and has so much respect. And both of them, it's a mutual respect for each other. And I think he said, this is worth a flyer. I get people arguing, saying, hey, he's taking a roster spot from somebody. There's no roster spots given in the NFL. You got to earn it. And maybe this was a polite way to say, hey, let's work him in because this is that next step to player development or an assistant type coach. And obviously the guy's got Jacksonville roots as well and is a legend down in that area. So that's going to sell some tickets because look, Jacksonville not every game is sold out in Jacksonville yet. So, you still need to play that PR game a little bit. And guess what? It gets people talking about the Jags more than they already were with Urban and with Trevor and Etienne coming in. And now there's this other conversation. So if you're looking at me and I'm a programmer out there and I can pick games, I know the teams that rate well, right? I know you're always going to want to get the Cowboys on as much as you can, right? I get it. I understand it. That's 101. But now the dynamic is, the corner of your eye, you're looking and going, let me look at that Jacksonville schedule one more time, right? Let me see, because they could be really, really interesting. And they will be interesting through preseason. They will be interesting, through all the OTAs, and they will be interesting for that first month of the season to see how everybody navigates this brave new world in Jacksonville. To me, I think they're the most fascinating story in the NFL right now.
Rob, I got my Hall of Fame vote for the College Football Hall of Fame yesterday, and
did you put Reggie Bush on it yet? Did you?
I did. His name? And guess what I did? And that's my question. I tweeted that out, and I tweeted my ballot out who I voted for. I put LeVar Arrington on there. I put Bryant McKinney, Ken Dorsey. Of course, I had to put my Miami guys on there, but I put Reggie Bush on there because, after I look at the whole situation that happened with him in the past, and I look at where we are in college football now, and I'm not saying what's right and wrong here, okay? But a home for his mom and dad, when USC has made millions of dollars, and I said this, look, I love the University of Miami, but they still sell jerseys, number 93, and they use my image to sell like season tickets and a section of the 93 section down at the University of Miami. Do I bitch about it? Absolutely not. They gave me everything that I have today and who I am today. I'm good with that, but I didn't sign a lifetime scholarship for you to be able to use my likeness. Now, all that being said, I had to put Reggie on there. I would even give him his Heisman back. I think he's part of the history of college football. Do you have a problem with me putting him on my Hall of Fame ballot?
0.0 Blutarski. I have no problem with that at all. He 100% deserves to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you what, I'll take it the next step. He 100% deserves to get his Heisman Trophy back. And that's the ground that I'm kind of fighting on right now. That's kind of my hill. Whenever that Heisman comes up, like for so long, it was taboo to mention Heisman and Reggie in the same conversation. We've got a weekly, almost semi-weekly edition on Big Noon Kickoff of our Heisman Club, right? And Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, two Heisman winners, are in charge of it. And they're telling you, who's up, who's down, who's sliding in, who's slid out. To not think that Reggie should be given that Heisman Trophy back is ludicrous to me in this day and age. And I understand, I understand what a lot of the private parties were going through back then. But you're right. You look at that. It wasn't like he was taking steroids, right? It wasn't like he was cheating in other ways. This was something that was off the field. This
was family related, I thought, too, Rob.
Looking out for your blood, right? So if you're going to take a trophy away from me because I have the opportunity to take care of my parents, take the trophy, right? Take the trophy. That's ridiculous. And the Heisman, and I'm a voter, and I'm a proud voter, and I really take it seriously. But if they want to have a conversation with me, I will sit down and I will give them the list of reasons that Reggie needs to come back. Number one, it's good for the Heisman. It's good for USC. It's good for Reggie. And guess what? It's good for college football. Give Reggie the Heisman back.
Absolutely, man. He was the first guy I put on my ballot. I sent it in and I posted it on my Twitter page at Dan Sileo Show. I said Reggie Bush deserves my vote, and I'm not going to hold what was in the past and how the old thinking was.
I'm really curious to see, Dan, how that vote shakes out. If
Me too.
Hold that grudge against him, because there shouldn't be. There's no reason in the world. I get the grudge of baseball and Bonds and McGuire, and that's a different conversation and situation. And I see both sides of that story. But to me, there is no two sides to this story. Reggie Bush was an exceptional, an elite college football player and should be in their Hall of Fame.
Two last questions for you, Rob. When you look at what's going on at Michigan. You and I have had this conversation. People are always like, Jim Harbaugh's failing. Again, I say he's failing against Ohio State the same way John Cooper failed against Michigan. However, I don't remember at all in any time during Bo Schembechler's run where he won a national championship. And for that matter, I think he only finished second once. And I know he had a winning record in the 10-year war against Woody. That's important. Earl Bruce had a winning record against Michigan, was still blown out, but it wasn't good enough. I understand all that. But I mean, what are the expectations truly at Michigan? I mean, look, he's almost made Michigan State irrelevant when it comes to recruiting. I mean, he's won a ton of games. I get the $9 million. I understand that. You've got to win against top 10 teams. You can't have Army push you to the final 2 minutes of a game. I understand all that. But college football is different than when Bo coached. How do you look at him?
It's a fascinating conversation, isn't it? And it
completely
it keeps showing its legs, right? Just when you think it's going to run itself out of Ann Arbor, it's like, oh no, I can run another half mile here. I think the problem is probably threefold. Number one, Ohio State's absolute dominance just kind of cast this massive shadow over him because he's in charge of that program. So Wolverine faithful should expect at a minimum closer games on a regular basis against Ohio State, right? Number two is they're not talked about as far as college football playoff consideration beyond the first half month of September, right? You get into October, and I don't think anybody's saying, oh, well, we got to put Michigan on this list because the Penn States have elevated their play. And, over in the West, the Wisconsin will come in every once in a while, or Iowa once in a while, or, Northwestern once in a while to steal even more of that thunder. The biggest thing and the oddest thing to me is the position you need to excel at in football is quarterback. And they have essentially have failed. If you ask me, they haven't, they failed at a Michigan level, to put it maybe a little bit softer, which is even more surprising when you consider, of course, your head coach is a former quarterback in the NFL, right? So you would think of all the positions that you would be able to nail, come out every season with an A grade, it's quarterback. Like at a minimum, you're going to get dudes from all parts of the country who know Harbaugh and say, I want to come here and play for him, and we're going to put up good numbers. And that hasn't happened. And they continue to search. And every year, every time we put together our research packet about Michigan, it's who's at quarterback and what are they going to get from this quarterback situation? And until they can give me 2 good years in a row at quarterback for Michigan, I'm still going to have the concerns about them and say, you are still second and maybe third fiddle in the Big Ten East.
Finally here, the Pac-12 got a brand new commissioner. And I'm not going to throw any shade at Larry Scott. They bring a guy in from the MGM. I didn't believe in West Coast bias, but you and I both living on the East Coast, these 10:30 ball games that the Pac-12 has to deal with, most of the people on the East Coast and fans, you don't really get the exposure. That's why you see all the money that's in the Southeastern Conference. The SEC is like a Premier League almost with the kind of revenue that they're making. Look at a new television deal that they just signed. They just gave each institution $23 million, Rob, because of COVID. Nobody does that unless you're really rich in money. And you look at the Pac-12, so many, Mario Cristobal, Kyle Whittingham, all these guys are my friends. Such great coaches. What does the new commissioner, do you think, need to do to make this conference? And I'm going to say this because I know that you're
is it going to
really
be the
love
R
this.
word? Does it start with R?
Yeah, relevant.
Yep, I agree. Well, he said the right words in his opening press conference, saying, we got to get football and basketball right, and that's kind of how you build your conference. You need to be strong with those two sports, and then you can be your conference of champions and win those soccer and volleyball and swimming and track and field and softball and all those other titles, which are great, and I love them. And I was an athlete for one of those sports. But in the end, if you're looking at the bottom line and you're looking at national relevance, you have to be good at college football. You have to be good at men's basketball. Plain and simple, nothing sexist about it. That's just the financial dynamics of where we are right now in college athletics. So how to become relevant again, that's the magic question. And they've been dealing with this, grappling with this for a while. I think number one is they need to start getting some of those Reggie Bush type recruits and Reggie Bush type talents, making Reggie Bush type plays that are thrust in front of your eyeballs. And you have to watch USC. You have to watch Oregon, Arizona State, whatever it may be. So I think keeping some of those talents home and going outside your borders and pulling them in from other places is paramount. The TV window, I think a lot of people like to harp on that, and I understand it. And that's why last year, remember, the Pac-12 opened up at noon Eastern. They took that long delay and they opened up on Fox. Arizona State, USC got a ton of bonus free attention, right?
Yeah.
And deserved attention, but more than they probably would have gotten if they kicked off 3 hours later, 6 hours later.
Correct.
So there's this, to me, it's this balancing act where I think you need to take the ADs and the head coaches in a room, turn off the phones, turn off the mics, put down the shades and say, listen, a couple of you guys are going to have to bite the bullet here a couple times, right? A couple of you are going to have to sit there and eat some of these noon Eastern, 9 a.m. kickoffs. I know the alumni base is going to be upset about it, but if you know it ahead of time, let's embrace it, right? It's breakfast with the Trojans, right? It's breakfast with the Bruins. It's something unique. It's something different. Listen, if you're a college kid and you're told, hey, can you get up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday to start drinking and tailgate and have fun before a football game?
Yeah.
Show me a fraternity house that's going to go boo, boo, right? And that's just a small sample size. But in the end, embrace this concept and say, guys, we as a collective unit need to do this because it's going to make you stronger in the long run. And now that I'm out on the West Coast, I love these Pac-12 after dark games because I'm up and they're crazy entertaining. But I think at some point, and I love the fact that my college football day just starts so early and I can just keep flicking. Like I can finally roll home in the 10s and go, there might be something, up in, I think Washington State might have a game. And maybe if I'm lucky, Hawaii's got an even later game. So there is something that's fun to the college football diehard nerd that you and I and so many millions of others are, that day is so extended. But in the end, if you're in charge of the business and you've got that acumen, you have to say, we need as many of these eyeballs on our product as possible. And if that means moving things up or moving things around to days, then right now, I think that's something they have to do and they have to be open to and they have to absolutely embrace it.
Bob Stoops joins you guys, right? He's going to be on your desk now. How cool is
Big
that?
name Bob, Big name Bob.
I can't wait, man. Rob, thank you so much for doing this, man. You always do this for me, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome, bud.
You got it, man. Rob Stone, Fox Sports. They do such a great job. We'll take a real quick time out. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back, National Football Show. Really some great conversation with Rob about the college game and also Reggie Bush. You know, Reggie never really had the NFL career that I thought he was going to have. Electric in college, though. And in case you don't know the story, I mean, he was found to have taken $300,000. Clearly an NCAA violation. It was found that a home was given to him, which his parents lived in, while he was playing at Southern Cal. All complete violations and completely against the rule book that the Neanderthal NCAA, who I call the National Communist Association of America, has, that they've barely revamped. You know what I hate about that book? The rules book and the bylaws in it is that what I just said, they barely go back and they revamp it in any way whatsoever to help the kid. Now, do you know what has happened because of COVID? I hate to say this. I really do. But in many ways, COVID opened the eyes of Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, and many of the people that are the investigators that go after the players. They now are allowing you to transfer without having to sit out. And I've always thought that rule was that happened to me. I had to sit out when I transferred. I never understood why a coach could leave an institution, immediately go and coach another school. Whereas if a kid didn't like what was going on when he showed up on campus and he wanted out, he had to sit out a year. Why? Why did that always, and why were the rules always against the kid and always in favor of the institution or the coach? Never in favor of the kid. Now, look, some would say, are you justifying that rule violations that Reggie? In a way, I am. In a way, I am. Think of the amount of money that USC has made off of selling Reggie Bush merchandise. Okay? Think of the money they made television-wise off of Reggie Bush when he was playing there. Hell, when Reggie Bush was even in the NFL, think of the money that Reggie was generating for Southern Cal. Think of that. And try to justify, look, I say this, and I used to say this about Urban. If Urban Meyer was worth $5 million a year at Florida, what was Tim Tebow worth at Florida? You know, then you get into the conversation of paying student athletes, which has always just absolutely fallen on deaf ears with me because I think we should be paying these kids. I don't know what that number is, but I've always believed this. Tied in education. If you want to tie something into education, kid gets a 4-year degree, and he leaves a university with a college education, do what they do in the military. Give him a stipend, $5,000, $10,000 when he leaves. He's generated enough revenue for that program. Give these kids opportunities when they leave that they can use that money maybe to start a business. Maybe they could start their lives. Maybe if they have a family, that money could go into a family fund for their kid. Anything. Graduation, I mean, tie it into education if you want. Kid doesn't get his monthly stipend if he doesn't have his GPA above a 2.8. Whatever you want to put it, I don't care. But get out of the old school way of thinking. Student athletes, I never understood this. How can you pay coaches $11 million like Nick Saban? Athletic directors, $3 million a year, and you don't pay the kids nothing. Well, they get an education. Well, then guess what? Keep the education and pay me the money that you think I'm worth. Always found that rule to be absolutely absurd. Pay the kids. They're employees. They're not labor. They're employees. They're student athletes. Act like it, okay? Act like it. Hey, I want to thank Krause. I want to thank my boy Cal. Big Joe, for all you guys do here on the JAKIB Media channel. Don't forget, each and every single Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 Eastern Time, you catch the National Football Show. Until then, we shall catch you on the flip side.